So this is where your time with Ford begins.
Yeah, January 66, I started working for Ford, and very shortly, I can't remember the exact date, I'm in California at Carroll Shelby's on Imperial Highway in El Segundo. And I think there was 6 mechanics sent from Allen Man Racing. 6 mechanics came up from Charlotte, from Holman and Moody. And there was about the same number came from Bill Strop Racing, which is in Torrance, I think, Long Beach. And the rest of them were Shelby mechanics. There was probably, there's got to be 50 of us, I guess, building these 6
All of the
Mark IIs, or the Mark IIs, yeah.
And this is at which facility? Is it the airport?
It's at the airport,
Yeah, the airport
on
facility,
Imperial
right.
Highway.
Right.
It was the old North American aviation buildings where they built the Sabre liners, and a beautiful place to work because there were airlines and plugs everywhere. I mean, it was just amazing.
Did they capture the feel of that facility pretty well in the film Ford Ferrari? Or was it glamorized for Hollywood?
Oh, it was glamorized. I mean, if you want to talk about the movie, a guy that I'm still in touch with, a guy named Mike Donovan, lives in California, and because Mike was in that program, in fact, he was the number 2 mechanic on the Amon McLaren car, and he was also the number 2 mechanic on the Mark IV a year later. And we often have a laugh. Anyway, he'd been consulted on some stuff at Hollywood, and he called me after the opening. He said, "Hey, Bailey, knowing how bloody critical you are about everything, go and see that movie with an open mind." So I said, okay. So I go and see this movie, and the first 5 minutes is Carroll Shelby winning the Le Mans 24 Hours and the Aston Martin DB3S, which he did. Mm-hmm. But it didn't mention Roy Salvadori, who drove the other 12 hours. If you didn't know anything about it, you'd think that Carroll Shelby had driven Le Mans 24 Hours. Yeah, and it was, and then, I mean, at lunch times, it was really difficult for us to go outside the Shelby shop to the aircraft side, to the runway side of the building. We weren't allowed to go out there, even to eat our sandwiches. And in the movie, here's these cars running around the airport runways, missing the oil barrels, going under the airplane wings. It was Hollywood, but it was an enjoyable movie. And I think the less you knew about it,
the more you enjoyed
probably the better it was, yeah. So anyway.
So now Ford brings you and a group from the UK.
Okay.
You've got Holman and Moody,
yeah,
good old boys from the South. And what's the culture like there at Shelby with bringing those groups together?
At first, difficult, but as time went on, you know, and there was a local pub. Yeah. We all, after the, Bill Eaton, who was kind of one of the chief fabricators, well, Remington was the chief fabricator. Bill Eaton was the guy that we all kind of got on with. He was an Englishman, so we got on quite well with Bill, and Carroll Smith was the shop foreman. And after about a week, we were just like one big team. It was a great opportunity. In fact,
a good pint was a good way to bring everybody together.
Some of those guys, moonshine was a better choice, but I didn't know what that was. It looked like water to me. And so it was getting towards the end. We'd done Le Mans, and we would have been back in California in June.
Won again, Ford for the third year in a row at that point in '66, right?
Yeah.
That was second victory.
First victory. First victory.
That's right. 65 was a failure.
Yeah.
66 was
64 and 5, they didn't do very well at all.
Right.
66 was the first win. 67 with a Mark IV was the second win. Right. And then they changed the regulations again from 7-liter. It had to go 5-liter maximum, 3-liter racing engines, 5-liter production engines. So everything was going well. And then the J car, which was ultimately the Mark IV, was brought into the shop, and we all got to sort of ogle at that thing. That was it had been built with honeycomb, and it was a different thing. And then unfortunately, we were all still there the day that they brought the thing back on a trailer, and Ken had died, unfortunately. And then shortly after that, I don't know whose direction it was, but I was sent down to Charlotte in North Carolina. I hadn't been down there at all. I didn't know what was going on there. So I'm down at Holman and Moody, and we had a couple of British Lotus Cortinas. And we ran, I don't know how many races are there, I can't remember now, but I remember doing Marlborough in Maryland, And I was up in New Hampshire at Briar Motorsport Park. We ran up there.
So you were still on Ford's payroll?
Still on payroll, but
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
And but I was working out of Holman and Moody instead of
instead of
thing.
Shelby out of.
And then the last races we did with the Cortinas, I'm on my way back to England, and they just started building the F3L Ford. It was a Len Bailey design, and it was being built at Allen Man Racing, and I got put on that program for a while, and then it was early.
Another Bailey, no relation?
No relation, no,
okay.
just same name.
Yeah.
And I was enjoying that. I did a couple of races with that F3L, and then it was probably, I'm thinking it was March of '67 when I got the Penske phone call, or Chris did, and I answered it. And it must have been March or April that I'm now living in Newtown Square, Philadelphia.